Go further with the American Express Business Gold Card. Earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels when you book through AmexTravel.com. Whether your destination is a business conference or a client meeting, your purchases will help you earn more points for future trips. Experience more on your travels with Amex Business Gold. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling. Just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Whether your business has 6 floors or 6 employees, Walmart Business has everything you need to save time, money, and hassle. You can restock your break room with bulk ordering or bulk up your ordering team with shared payments. And you can get it all delivered straight to your business's door, whether that's on Wall Street or Main Street. Walmart Business. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew, too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Beneful. Mornings are when the grind starts. Stretches, immaculate. Cardio, crushed it. Territory, marked. Sorry, geraniums. The dog routine is on point, but it can get a little wolf. That's why I fuel up with high-protein, Beneful freshly prepared meals. I'm eating clean with real meat and veggies, served fresh from the pantry. Kick boring in the bowl with Beneful freshly prepared meals. Visit Purina.com/Beneful to shop now.
Hello, Eagles and draft fans. Welcome to the Big Legged Waistbenders podcast. My name is WannaB. I am your host. Today, I will run through some of the top 2-round offensive tackle options in the NFL draft for the Philadelphia Eagles at picks 23 and 54. First off, we will lead with Mr. Reliable Blake Miller, a rare non-redshirt 4-year starter at right tackle for Clemson. His rookie year, he will be only 22 years of age. So while he is a more developed prospect compared to the others, his youth suggests there is more time for physical development and improvement. I do think he needs to develop a little more core strength. While he is not a zero in the run or screen game, that is not why you draft this young man. Against NFL-level power in the run game, he will sometimes have difficulty sustaining blocks at the first level and occasionally get rocked. He's athletic enough to contribute as a zone blocker and should be a pretty decent scheme fit. And while he's not the speediest getting out into space compared to some offensive linemen we spoiled fans of Philadelphia have become accustomed to over the years, he is a solid blocker on the second level, with some room for improvement there, landing on his mark, but he can get there. The pass protection is why Blake is considered a day 1 or day 2 prospect. He has very quick feet and good lateral change of direction. His stride length going backwards in vertical sets is not quite as majestic and impressive as Monroe Freeling, the darling of the NFL Combine. And his abilities to dance up the arc with speed rushers is not quite as impressive as Caleb Lomu. But he plays more under control in his pass sets than either of them and aggressively meets pass rushers earlier on the arc than either Lomu or Freeling. And he gets out on them quickly without sacrificing his inside shoulder to counter moves. His wingspan is well above average for a draftee, and his arm length is slightly above average, so length is not a big issue for him. He measured as a good athlete at the Combine. He has good grip strength on tape and hand placement. It was difficult to find examples where pass rushers gave him issues at the NCAA level. I had to go back in time to the 2024 tape to the previous season. against Georgia and Louisville. He did face early round pass rushers who relied heavily on power in those two matchups. And he did occasionally give up ground against these players, but for the most part, he kept his quarterback clean. And even when he was knocked back, he was able to reestablish his anchor before the quarterback got hit in almost all cases. Ashton Gillott, the Louisville defensive end in particular, gave him some major problems. He just got underneath him. I wouldn't even say it was underneath his pads. It was more like underneath his belly button. He just really got underneath him and just uprooted him and drove him backwards repeatedly. Otherwise, his 24 tape was pretty good, and I suspect Miller will fare better against a low center of gravity power rusher like Gillott the next time he faces him. Gillott now plays for Kansas City. So as Devin Jackson from the Inquirer put it the last time he came on this show, there are some core strength concerns with Blake Miller. I do feel Miller has legit offensive tackle feet, hands, length, technique, and good experience, and he has good tape. But the core strength versus low-to-the-ground bull rushers will be something to monitor going forward. Versus the Georgia pass rushers, both of whom went in the first round last year, I thought he was fine in pass protection. Jalen Walker gave him a little bit of problems, but even versus Walker, Miller's pass pro was definitely good enough. So I do think he will be able to block the majority of NFL pass rushers, and a little bit more time in an NFL strength and conditioning program. Hopefully Lane Johnson rubs off on him. The 1 year they're together could do him some good. I don't consider him a weakling. For the most part, his anchor is not an issue. He does have plenty of reps where he does do positive things in the run game as well. He's just not a big-time run blocker for sure. And as a pass protector, he will have an occasional matchup issue. Overall, at 23, I would be okay with the Eagles drafting Blake Miller. He's that unexciting, Mr. Reliable, not particularly high ceiling, but strong floor draft candidate. And the thing about the first round and the second round, especially the late first where most of the blue chip prospects are gone, you just don't want to swing and miss. You know, I'm happy with a good double at 23. I prefer a home run, but I really don't want to swing out at the 23rd pick. If anybody remembers Andre Dillard, I mean, he danced like a ballerina. He was super quick, barely gave up any college pressures, but he was a developmental prospect with a lot of risk and a really weak anchor. Reliable, steady, safe. I'm fine with that at pick 23. Next, we'll talk about Caleb Lomu, starting left tackle for Utah. He is on the low threshold end of arm length for an offensive tackle in the NFL and right around average for wingspan. So his length is a little bit of an issue, and it does show up on tape at times. The phrase dancing bear kept popping in my head because he is the most nimble mover of potentially this entire draft class, on the edge versus speed going backwards up the arc. He would use this mobility to delay hand fighting and force the rusher to show his first move. At first, I felt this was pretty advanced. As time went on, I began to wonder if he didn't trust his core strength or grip strength enough, or his length, because while he danced backwards like a 310-pound ballerina, he was letting some speed rushers get way too far up the arc before initiating contact, somewhat routinely. I found many examples of him leaning, and that being used against him, both in the run and the pass game, and to a lesser extent, I found examples of players breaking his grip strength and tossing him aside. Given his low level of competition in college, his flaws were rarely a big issue in pass protection, so I went to the game versus Texas A&M to see how he fared in his matchup against edge rusher Romello Height, who is also going to be in this year's draft. And it was an eye-opener. Romello whooped his behind, routinely. He would find the soft shoulder in Lomu's pass pro sets, attack that arm, and end up by Lomu on his way to a quarterback pressure multiple times. Now, Lomu is a younger and less experienced player than Height. Height is an older college athlete. I can't remember his exact age, but he has more experience. So it's understandable if he took a loss or two. But I've watched tackle prospects with much worse feet and flexibility who are day 3 prospects block Romello Height much more effectively than Lomu did this in this matchup, and that gives me some pause. Let's pivot to the run game. On slower developing plays where Lomu had to go out on the perimeter and block a second-level defender, he looks measured and under control, and he made several key blocks, landed on his target square. But in tighter spaces where he had to move a little quicker at the second level, it was more hit and miss. He was a good puller behind the line of scrimmage to kick out a defensive end, not necessarily with great power and pop, but he landed his block and he got there quickly. In tight quarters in the run game, he seriously lacked sustained power and leg drive. I'd say that both his core strength and leg drive were worse in pass protection and run blocking than Blake Miller, who is the first prospect we just talked about. I struggled to understand Lomu, to be honest. How can you look so agile and bendy going backwards in pass sets and yet often look stiff and upright, bending at the waist if he stopped his feet or when run blocking? Believe it or not, there's actually prospects who move better backwards relative to the norm compared to when they move forwards. Not every player moves equally well in every direction. I remember a cornerback a few years ago, I think he might have been from Clemson, I can't remember. At first, early in the draft season, he was the darling, highly rated. I turned on his tape, I watched him go backwards in coverage, and I stood up in my chair a little bit. I was impressed. But then when it was time for him to come straight forward downhill, it was like he ran into a wall. Eventually, the league figured this out if they hadn't already at that point, and he went very low in the draft, if at all. I'm not even sure if he might have even ended up a UDFA. So that is a bit of an extreme example. But Lomu has a little bit of that in him. A lot of times when he was moving forward in space or in tight quarters, he looks very upright. He looks more stiff-hipped than you would expect after you see him dance up the arc backwards. So I do think that's a minor issue for Lomu. I think part of it is he's carrying a little bit too much weight up top. He also reminded me of an offensive tackle prospect who was drafted roughly 10 years ago by New Orleans, Andrus Peat. Like Lomu, he danced laterally very well, but at times showed a lack of core balance and strength through contact. He eventually was moved inside to guard, and although he did sign a second contract, his career has been hit and miss. It seemed to me that Pete had a bit of a body composition problem, where at one point in time he was carrying too much bad weight and never fully recovered. I don't believe Lomu's carrying as much bad weight as Andrus Peat was, but I do believe he needs to lose some of that baby fat. Blake Miller could lose a little baby fat as well, but I would say less so than Lomu. Miller, compared to Lomu, also has more naturally strong core in comparison, and stronger grip strength. So while both need to work on their bodies in the NFL, I do think Lomu has a longer road ahead of him than Miller in order to find that right balance between girth and muscle and speed. And for me, that adds more variability in Lomu's future outcomes. So with that weaker floor as a prospect, and with Miller being the more NFL-ready player right now, I would pass on Lomu at the 23rd pick, fully understanding that he might one day develop into a strong starting pass protector on the blind side. His floor just is not strong enough for the Eagles' 23rd pick if I'm the GM. For our next prospect, we will switch gears to Caden Proctor, the left tackle from the University of Alabama. He turns 21 years old this upcoming June, so he is the youngest prospect of the bunch. At one point, he was up to 400 pounds at Alabama. His weight loss journey is now pretty well documented in the public sphere. He got down to around 355 during the 2025 season. Reportedly, I don't have access to that exact direct information. And that's roughly the same way he showed up at the NFL Combine. His 2024 season, when he likely played at a heavier weight and also had a torn labrum, was a bit disappointing as people were excited for his upside as a prospect. He also began this 2025 season in similarly disappointing fashion. I remember watching the Florida State game when he started having so much trouble that they had to routinely give him help on passing downs. After that game, he realized he needed to start losing weight at the suggestions of former and current teammates and his coaching staff. He gradually shed weight throughout the season, and his play did significantly improve. However, even later in the season, there were still examples on the tape of him getting blown by speed up the arc, and occasionally having difficulty re-anchoring if he started to lose versus speed to power. To me, if Proctor has issues running up the arc for speed to power, then my best guess is he needs to lose more weight. I don't know what his ideal playing weight is. I have a feeling he will continue to lose weight and find that perfect balance, and it might take him a year, maybe two. But it's very possible that for offensive tackle, he may need to lose 20 pounds or more. It's pretty common for offensive tackles to play around 320 or so, and he's currently 352 pounds. He also has below average arm length and below average wingspan for the offensive tackle position at the NFL. He has the same arm length as Lomu and shorter wingspan, and shorter arms and shorter wingspan than Blake Miller. Now, many feel Proctor is a guard at the NFL level. It's very possible he can be a good NFL guard. But without video evidence, it's difficult for me to predict exactly how good he will be at guard. Just eyeballing it, he doesn't look like the next Brandon Brooks to me. And if drafting a large offensive tackle who has to slide inside, I feel there are other options later in the draft where it makes more sense to make that bet. Our next prospect I'll mention briefly is Monroe Freeling from the University of Georgia. I won't delve too far into his tape here because after having a stellar combine, he's probably going to go before the Eagles pick at 23. He's probably the best lateral mover and recovery guy in this draft at offensive tackle out of the guys I'm talking about for this exercise. He has some upside. I felt like he lacked power and he needs some more technique work. What I will say about Monroe is I do like him. I felt like he lacked power. I loved his lateral quickness. I loved his speed in open space. I felt that he didn't give a whole lot as a run blocker yet, kind of like in the Blake Miller mold. Actually, I'd say Blake Miller gives a little bit more as a run blocker right now. I would say that Monroe Freeling has more upside than Blake Miller. He has a better NFL body, and he was more explosive in terms of his movement skills. So it's a difficult decision, Blake Miller versus Monroe Freeling. I'm quite confident that the NFL is going to choose Monroe Freeling. Flip a coin. I'd probably lean towards Blake Miller, but it's a tough call. I'm going to be honest with you. Anywho, he's not going to be there at pick 23. Now, maybe if he lasts to the late teens, early 20s, Howie does a trade up and goes and gets him. I would not be the least bit surprised by that. That would be a total Howie Roseman type move. I just don't see the third offensive lineman and probably second true offensive tackle in the draft lasting that long, but it's possible. Next, we'll talk about Max Ihenekor. Below average arm length, but about a half inch longer than Lomu and Caden Proctor. Above average wingspan. Quick feet. At 320 pounds, he had some explosive testing numbers. This is a guy who can move a little bit, and it shows up on his tape. There's some quickness on gallop blocks. There's not a whole lot of power behind his gallop blocks, but he lands them quick and gets to the second level quick, coming off double teams. Even just on direct climbs, he gets up there quick to the linebackers and gets them. If he has to reach block somebody, he's quick as a hiccup. Just those typewriter feet just takes him right around the next player to his left or his right, and he gets in good position. And he's a pretty strong positional blocker. He actually reminds me a little bit of Tyler Steen as a positional blocker, which is both good and bad. The more I watched his tape, the more concerns popped up. At first, I was very excited when I saw how he moved and his size. And he did have some success pass blocking against some pretty good edge rushers at the NCAA level. He was tested a few times by some good players. And he didn't do all bad. It was a little mixed, but he hung in there. His technique is a problem. His hand fighting is a problem way too many times. So I mentioned how he was a good run blocker in certain double teams and in climbs and in reach blocks. But if it's just mano-a-mano base blocking, or if it's something where like it's a wide zone block and he's going out and the defensive end is going with him and he has to block him one-on-one, the hand fighting is bad. In pass protection, the hand fighting is bad. He lets guys get his hands into his chest way too often. Now, I know he has slightly below average arm length for an ideal offensive tackle, but it's not that far off. He's got almost 34-inch arms, depending on how long his arms are that given day, or who does the tape measure test. He might be 34 inches, and he's got that above average wingspan. So why is he not using those hands quicker? So he doesn't use the hands independently well. And even when he's using them together at the same time, he's bear hugging a lot. He's letting guys into his chest. When he hands fights, he's losing the hand fight battle a lot. I see like defensive ends grabbing his one wrist with their one hand and holding on to it to take away some of his power and lift him up. So it makes him seem like a weaker physically player than he is in reality. I would say he's probably Tyler Steen's strong, maybe a little bit more powerful than that, and definitely a little more agile and speedier, and definitely longer. That should be a pretty good football player. So the hand fighting has to be fixed. Now, is that something that he can fix with a year of development? It certainly might happen. At the NFL level, fewer distractions. He's going to job all day, working on his craft. Maybe he gets his hand fighting where it needs to be. He certainly has a good role model to learn from in Lane Johnson. So maybe it could work. If you squint your eyes, you could see a guy like him who can dance pretty well up the arc, not Lomu level, but he's got pretty quick feet. His feet aren't as quick, and his lateral change of direction aren't Monroe Freeling level, but they're pretty quick, and his change of direction is pretty good. He can recover some. His length is adequate, and he's not a weakling. I don't think he has a naturally weak anchor. I think at times his anchor looks a little weak due to technique and losing with technique. So maybe it can be ironed out. But here's the thing. Are you going to take the chance at pick 23 that can be ironed out? I don't know that I can. I'm not Howie Roseman. I don't have his stomach for risk when it comes to the NFL draft. I'm more of a hit to doubles instead of home runs guy. And I'm not even sure his upside is quite as high as it first appears. Physically, he does remind me of Tyler Steen in certain ways, where I think his upside might be a little bit more limited than people realize currently. Because he can have a handful of plays and really flash, and then you keep watching, and there's times he's not moving guys when he should be moving them, that you would expect him to move. So, I just wonder about, is his upside truly as high as it seems at first glance? Now, can he slide inside if he doesn't work at offensive tackle? Kind of like Caden Proctor, I do believe he can. Caden Proctor would be more of the road grader type. I'd say that Iheanacho would be more of a quick hitting type at guard. And I do think it's something he could do. I mean, heck, we saw Isaac Sumalo play offensive guard here for years. At first, his anchor was too weak and he was too light, and he beefed up and over time got naturally stronger. And he still never got to the point that he was a big people mover, but he was an adequate, solid starting guard in this league for us for multiple years, and now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Iheanacho can probably have more power at the offensive guard position than Sumalo, with similar quickness, if not better quickness, actually, than Sumalo had during his prime years here in Philadelphia. So I could see a future where there's two-position versatility for Iheanacho if he never fixes his technique issues outside in pass protection. But there's some ifs there. I don't like ifs at 23. So I'd feel a whole lot more comfortable drafting Iheanacho at 54. Here's the problem. At 54, he's going to be gone. There is no way a guy with that talent is going to be there at 54. I mean, I guess it's possible. I shouldn't say no way. Weird things happen in the draft every year. Guys fall, guys rise, and it's like, didn't see that coming. But if I had to bet on it, I'd bet against him being available at pick 54. So is he somebody you would trade up for in the second round? Maybe. I think it'd be a reasonable decision. I'm not sure I would do it in this draft. I feel like we have some extra picks, and we have more needs than usual this year. So I kind of like to use those picks on solid role players in the mid-rounds. And there's a good many of them at multiple positions along the offensive line, at tight end. We have multiple holes. I'd like to get some solid role players and some solid starters maybe in those mid-rounds. I know with hit rates, it's harder to do in the mid-rounds. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic. But personally, I would not trade up for Iheanacho, but I would not be upset if the Eagles did because I could see the vision. He has some potential outside at tackle, and if not, he can probably be a pretty darn good starting offensive guard. 1 year from now, Tyler Steen is a free agent. I don't know if he's going to stay or not. 1 year from now, we also don't know if Landon Dickerson is going to be playing in the NFL. He might hang it up after two more surgeries. There were certainly some weird things going on with that contract restructure that I still don't know all the details about. And I'm very curious about when it comes out because that was a weird thing he and Howie did with his contract. And it makes me wonder how many more years he has left in the NFL. So we may need some help at offensive guard. So if Iheanacho does not pan out a tackle, at least you're not empty-handed. You could probably slide him inside. I can kind of see how he could slide inside, maybe even better than Caden Proctor. I know Caden Proctor has a little bit more straight line power, a little more size.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You know you need fiber for a healthy gut, but do you actually know how to get it? Quaker's been serving up fiber since 1877, with over 100 great-tasting, good source of fiber options to choose from. Whether you like old-fashioned oats, instant oatmeal, granola, or oatmeal squares, Quaker makes it delicious. So good. Get your fiber with Quaker. Shop Quaker's good source of fiber products at a store near you.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
It's the Paradise Podcast.
I am your host, Ryan Michelle Bethay, with my husband, Sterling.
What's up?
Join us here on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus, where we'll discuss each episode with the cast and crew of Paradise. I'll be getting all the secrets from Dan Fogelman, James Marsden, Shailene Woodley, Julianne Nicholson, and Sterling Kelby-Brown. Woo! Paradise, the official podcast, is now streaming.
And stream Paradise on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
At least in terms of weight and muscle mass. But Iannacor is no tiny guy. He probably plays around 330 pounds, and there's room on his frame to add more weight. And he's got loads of quickness and speed. He tested pretty well at the combine for a guy 320 plus. So he could probably add a little weight and still have plenty of quickness for the offensive guard position. I can't think of another guy in this class I'd feel comfortable with at 23 or 54, or who even should be in the running. I've seen an offensive tackle named World pop up and be mentioned, but I turned on his tape and no, not that high. I saw the offensive tackle from Boston College. I think his name's Bowery. Not enough power, not enough strength. No, not for me. Not at 54. The only offensive tackle I've seen so far at 54 that I might have a little bit of interest in is a guy who was on everybody's lowlights at the Senior Bowl, Markel Bell. He got rocked and sat on his butt in impressive fashion by the Michigan defensive end in the Senior Bowl practices, and it made everybody go, "Oh, damn!" Ooh. And it made the rounds on social media over and over. I think everybody's seen it by now. He got sat down on his keister quick and hard. But I got to say, diving into his tape, I saw a better pass protector than I was expecting. He gave me heavy Fred Johnson vibes. Most people might think, oh, Fred Johnson, he's not that good. Well, yeah, he's not that good. However, you could plug him in at offensive tackle, and you don't have to worry about the safety of your quarterback. That doesn't grow on trees, folks. There's not that many offensive tackles you can put out there rep after rep, and your quarterback's not getting sacked. Without help, by the way. He probably wasn't helped much because he played for the Eagles, who would leave their offensive tackles on an island. And I think there's a chance that Markel Bell can be that type of length and strength pass protector on the edge. He's 6'9"ish. I don't know his exact measurements. His wingspan and arm length is off the charts. He's like 36 plus inch arms. Wingspan is something crazy. It's really long. And obviously he's going to have a high pad level, but he seemed like a polished enough tactician and a well-rounded enough football player and a good enough pass protector that while I probably would not take the plunge at 54, if a team did take him in the second round, I would find it to be a reasonable decision. Other than that, I've got no other guys at 23 or 54 that I can highly recommend for the Philadelphia Eagles in this draft. So I hate to sink any of you replace Lane Johnson fans out there in a depression, but I would target offensive line in the mid-rounds in this draft and not in the first two. Lane Johnson is here one more year. Who knows? Maybe he'll decide like Jason Kelce did, hey, maybe I'd like to give it a second year. And Lane's here 2 more years. You never know. We do have some young guys we drafted who might develop. There are some guys in this draft in the mid-rounds who could be solid swing tackles. I just mentioned one of them in Markel Bell from Miami. So it's not the end of the world if they don't get their offensive tackle of the future in this draft. It would be nice if they could, but let's not reach for need. And let's consider the needs. Right now, other positions in the very short term might be a bigger need than offensive tackle. And right now, you might get a guy at another position that's a higher BPA level than offensive tackle at 23 and 54. So it's tricky. If they go offensive tackle at 23, if they take Blake Miller, if they somehow end up with Freeling, I can live with those decisions. I don't have a big issue with them. If they take Proctor at 23, I'm a little more nervous because there's variability there. He most likely has to lose a significant amount of weight to play offensive tackle. And once he does, we don't know what that's going to look like. He might even need to lose a little bit of weight just to slide into guard, which we haven't seen him play yet at the NCAA level. So that would concern me at 23. It might work out, but it would concern me. Caleb Lomu would probably concern me at 23 even more than Caden Proctor. High upside, low floor. Risky bet. The lack of power is a little scary. The length is a little questionable. And he's got to develop his core strength a significant amount and lose a little bit of the baby fat in his upper body. So I would not feel comfortable with that pick at 23 either. Just to give the Eagles fans out there a historical reference, I would take Caleb Lomu at 23 over Andre Dillard. His core isn't that weak. His ability to anchor is definitely not that weak. And he's probably a little bigger. I can't remember Dillard's exact measurements. He's probably a little bigger and longer. And he has physicality to him. He's not afraid to fight. So that's where I am with the first 2 rounds in offensive tackle in this draft. Maybe Max Ianacor at 23 because he has, in my opinion, maybe even more guard tackle versatility than Caden Proctor. Maybe he could be an option at 23. I would not be comfortable. Much more comfortable at 54. Slight trade up. And that's all I got. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you have a great day. And remember, we can't use our draft capital on big-legged waistbenders, but we can give them our love. Go Birds!